And now, you know what, Vince?
What's up, Ricardo?
We have so much to talk about today. We have to get to our guests that I am just going to jump right into this week's marijuana news.
Let's do it. Wow, last week we were buried in weed news. I feel like this week was just a little dry.
It's true, it's a little bit dry. There weren't as many massive national stories, but this week did give us a major milestone for legal cannabis in America.
Yeah, and it's back up in the Pacific Northwest again. Last week we were talking about Oregon, and this week we're talking about
Washington, of course. Now, on July 8th, Vince, legal marijuana sales in Washington state celebrated their first birthday. And the state's pot program, it's grown so much in that last year.
Seriously, Ricardo, I remember July 8th, 2014 when there was only one pot shop in Seattle, and there was a couple of others scattered around that large state.
One shop in Seattle. It seems like so long ago, but it was a year ago, and now the state has more than 160 shops, and pot tax revenues, they're soared well beyond expectations. The state's overall sales haul for legal weed topped $250 million, and its marijuana taxes totaled more than $70 million. That is legitimate money for the state, but at the same time, it's a drop in the bucket when compared to Washington's two-year operating budget of $38 billion.
I hear that, Ricardo, but how did Washington State's, how did their pot sales do compared to right here in Colorado?
You know, Colorado sold more than $313 million in recreational cannabis in its first year, and $700 million in total pot sales, but that number includes Colorado's regulated medical sales. So in Washington, the medical system was unregulated for the entire first year of the state's recreational era. So let's say Washington sold $250 million in its first year, and Colorado sold $313 million in its first year.
That's pretty comparable.
Indeed. Yeah, very comparable. And now in other weed news, Vince, let's move along. The cannabis-friendly ranch resort that captured an entire country's imagination in the last month is calling uncle. Vince, do you remember Cannacamp?
Of course I do. We can't get away from this place. We've talked about it so much on the show. Go check it out in the last couple of episodes. It was even featured on Jimmy Fallon, Conan O'Brien.
That is the one. And after all that talk and all of those promises of 170 acres of wilderness and weed yoga and all-around 420 friendliness, Cannacamp is no more, at least not this year. So after publicizing a July 1 opening date, some of Cannacamp's organizers finally released the news that they were postponing the marijuana ranch to summer 2016.
You know, I knew that it was too good to be true. But what about all the people who made reservations?
So the Mary Jane Group said their partners failed to secure the ranch outside of Durango, Colorado. So now they've parted ways with those partners, and they're looking for a new location to open up next summer. For those who already made reservations, the Mary Jane Group is offering them a free stay at their 420 friendly B&Bs in Denver and Colorado Springs, Silverthorne, with the hopes that they'll rebook at Cannacamp when it finally opens next year. So I had a long conversation with Joel Schneider of the Mary Jane Group, and he said he's, quote, disappointed and embarrassed.
Yeah, no shit. I'd be embarrassed too if my weed ranch was all over national TV and had to postpone its opening literally at the last minute, dude.
Yeah,
Yikes.
yeah, definitely. It's not ideal.